The topic is laid out on this slide, our role in HR during this crisis and what we can do. I'm going to leave this slide up for a minute because I want to, the question I always get is, could I get a copy of the slides? And I'm sorry I don't have a clip to do it, but if you write down this address, you can get a copy of the slides and manage that. So I'll just talk for a minute. I hope to go through a lot of material. For those who I know, and your introduction was very kind, and thank you. I keep looking at what food that is behind you. It looks like
those are
oranges,
tropical. There are papaya, and mangoes.
Okay.
Tropical
and
fruits.
what I have is a drink out of my big cup.
Okay, I have a cup of coffee as well.
Oh, that's very good. Very good. And so I'm going to share a lot of information, and I hope you're able to write down the address for the slides, about what's going on in this world and where HR seems to be able to create value. And so that's what I do. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan in the United States, and I spend quite a bit of my time until the last 2 months traveling. With everyone else, I'm in my home and working from my home office. With that in mind, let me give you a table of contents. We want to look at HR value added after this incredible shock that has happened to us. And I'm going to go through 6 things. I'll do the first couple pretty quickly. We'll see if there are questions, and I'll talk about navigating paradox, stages, deliverables, and some action. So I hope this will be questions. You can go to the chat box or Q&A, and I'll stop every once in a while, and I'll ask Cal if there are any questions that you should ask me. And I'm also going to do a couple of polls to get your information. So let me start with the first question. And this is a value logic question. It's a polling question. What's the most important thing that HR can give an employee? That's an interesting question. Now you see on my slide, I've got 5 options. I'd like you to take a minute and just see if you can fill that out. Thank you very much, Hal, for doing this. And I think we're seeing. We'll tell me how when you think we're done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dave, for making this very interactive.
It looks, I can see, I think people can see with me. I don't think we'll take the full time, but it looks like we've had, let's go to about 70 people. We're to 52 people. So if you can please poll and see where you are. I think we see a pattern. Let me talk about that while the last folks call in. You know, it's interesting. What is it we give an employee? And I ask this question a lot of business leaders and HR leaders, and it's interesting to see the responses. I'm assuming others can see it with me. Is that accurate? I think so.
No, sir. Yes, now it's number 4. 90%.
There we go. Everybody can see it.
Wow.
90% said number 4, all of the above. That's really interesting. And again, we got most people responded. I'm going to get out of this and go back to my slide deck. So could you go back to my slide deck now? Let's remove this one. I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. Let me go to my slides. And by the way, one of the lessons we learned is as we do this work from home, we learn how to do it. So I need to be able to move. There we go. Everybody got it wrong. Everybody got it wrong. The most important thing we can give an employee is not a sense of belief, becoming better, belonging, or all of the above. It's none of the above. The most important thing we can give an employee, a big company or a small company, anywhere in the Philippines, a government agency, a private agency, is an organization that succeeds in the marketplace. Unless and until our organization succeeds in the marketplace, there are no employees. There is no workplace. And so you can't have belief, becoming better, belonging to a community. You can't have any of that until you succeed in your marketplace. Now that's so obvious, but it's such a critical thing because we often ask ourselves the question, who are my customers in HR? Who are my stakeholders? We love to think outside in, but what we often think is the customers or the stakeholders of HR are below the line. I in HR serve the employees, absolutely. A small, medium enterprise, a big enterprise, public sector, private sector. I help my line managers, my business leaders build value. But I've also got to serve above the line. I've got to serve customers. because if we don't have customers, we have no company. I've got to serve my investors, my owners, my social citizenship, the community, my partners. Again, the first message I want to get out is so basic. Our fundamental assumption of HR has to change. The value we create is not what we do inside, but what our customers and our investors get from outside. So after this shock, our value added, and after this jolt, is to create value for those outside the company. The most important thing HR, well, let's go to the next slide. Now, what does that mean? Our overall assumption is that HR is not about HR. We're about creating value for someone else. For example, let me give an example of that. I teach at the university, and somebody comes to an executive program, and they say, or you could go to an Ariva executive program, which is superb. Irish told me I'm supposed to say that 3 times. So,
so that's the first time you said it.
That's the first time. And I go to a program, and we say, why are you coming to this program? I want to do a better job of executive compensation. I want to do a better job of learning. I want to do a better job building leadership. Our comment is that's not enough. We suggest you put behind each of those phrases so that, 2 words, so that. I want to do a better job of building culture so that we win in the marketplace. I want to do a better job of building leaders so that we win in the marketplace. I want to do a better job of training so that we succeed in the marketplace. So on this slide, the content is king. And that's not sexist. I'll come to it in a minute. But the context is the kingdom in which we work. So if I'm going to create that value in the marketplace, I need to understand the context. What are the conditions that shape my future? Why do I say that? Because the coronavirus and the pandemic has affected the Philippines, it's affected Latin America, it's affected Europe, it's affected the United States in a huge way. That's the context in which we have to operate. Until January, we'd all put up this slide and we'd say, here's the new world of work, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. In fact, I get tempted to say, here's the new world of work, 10.0, and jump ahead of everybody else. But there is new work in social, political, economic, technology trends. Well, now what's happening since January, February, March in the Philippines, these are the headlines everywhere. And I could have gone into the Philippines and pulled them out. This coronavirus, COVID-19 is just shaping the whole world. You're working at home, we're working at home. And that's the sweeping change in life. That's the context in which we have to operate. I like this last piece at the bottom of this slide. Coronavirus, a deadly virus, has killed thousands in a global pandemic. Sweeping changes in our way of life as the world tries to slow its spread. That's our new world. That's our new world. And I think it's just amazing how that's happened to each of us so quickly. So these are the new terms that I've had to learn in the last 6 weeks. I wonder if you've had to learn them as well, Hal, and others on the thing. I never thought about what a ventilator is. I never understood social distancing meant 6 feet. I never knew what community spread was, quarantining, drive-through testing, sheltering in space, protective N95 masks, stay at home, lockdown. Woo! We have faced a lot of stuff. And one of the realities we face is this world is complex. And many of us are in shock. And it affects us all very differently. It affects my personal life. It's so amazing. There's fear, there's anxiety, there's distancing. Hal, do you happen to have children at home?
Yes, I have 2 kids.
How old?
My eldest daughter, she's in the US now. She just got married. And I have a high school. I have a high school here in the Philippines.
You know, we have, that's our family, about a year ago.
Wow.
We have 3 children, and we have 10 grandchildren. This is a
wow.
couple of years. And that's a beautiful wife, and that's an ugly husband.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're good looking as well, sir.
You know, this affects us. Our 3 children each have children. We have 10 grandchildren. And they're having to do homeschooling. I don't know if that's real in the Philippines or not, but it's changing the world we live in. And it changes our organizations in a dramatic way. So I'm going to do a second poll. Do you have the second poll? I took it out of this slide. I don't know if you have it in your slides. Nope, let's skip it. I'm going to move on. It's changed our life. Let me share with you something. I have not shared this in 30 years. One of the things I love to do, and I can't believe I got this out to share with you. This is my dissertation, my PhD dissertation from 1982, before you were born.
No, I was born in the 72 and in the 70s.
Oh, well, you should be older. So this is my dissertation, and you won't be able to read that. But let me tell you what I studied, and I'll just read it. I studied empirical taxonomy, and my PhD is about taxonomy. And I don't even remember how many pages this is. I had to look for it just before the call. I have 313 pages about taxonomy. Now, why do I share that? Taxonomy is the science of simplicity. This is now a complex world. Look at all these terms. Look at this coronavirus. How do I make it simple? And my dissertation decades ago is my passion for the last 30, 40 years. Let me tell you 3 dimensions of simplicity. In this coronavirus, this complex world, we've got to learn to navigate paradox. Here's what that means. And I'll talk about this in more detail in a minute. People say, oh, we've got to care about people. True. We do have to care about our people. Some of the people don't like it, but I like the term caregiver, caretaker. I think in HR, we are the emotional caregivers. We're the caretakers of our people as they got jolted. And we have to create a competitive organization. Here's the challenge. How do you navigate both? Because if all you do is care about people, you lose in the marketplace. If all you do is win in the marketplace, you lose with your people, and it's not worth working at your company. One of the issues as we go forward is to navigate paradox. A second issue is to recognize that in almost every crisis incident, there are some stages. We don't always know what's next, but we ought to anticipate what's coming. And third, HR can deliver value to the outside customer and the internal employee through 3 things: talent, organization, and leadership. So that becomes, to some extent, a Rubik's Cube. I could never do a Rubik's Cube, but that's the Rubik's Cube we're talking about. In this crisis, we have to navigate those 3 things. Okay, I think I'm going to stop and see, Hal, if there are any questions.
Yes,
I've gone for about 15 minutes, and I've started with an assumption, value added outside in, after this shock. I've then talked about COVID-19 and our HR response. Notice my next 3 pieces are around each of those: navigating paradox, stages of a crisis, and deliverables. So I won't answer questions on that, but any questions or comments so far from anybody that, any questions or comments? Do they show up on your screen? I can't see the chat box.
So at this moment, I think they are still digesting what you have shared with us, sir. And they're intently listening and absorbing everything that you have shared with us.
Okay. So if there's no questions, Hal, tell me your background. We've not worked much together. I know that you like papaya and fruit and that you have a beautiful kitchen. What's your background?
I was a graduate of BS Computer Engineering, but I pursued a career in sales and marketing right after college. And eventually I became a trainer. And from then on, I loved training people, organizational development, and I never looked back. So now I'm one of the speakers of Ariva Academy here in the Philippines.
Well, and Ariva Academy is one of the best places to go to get for training. That's my second time.
Yes, and I agree, sir. I agree with you, sir, the second time.
So what's a topic that we love to train on in Ariva Academy?
In the Philippines, prior to the COVID-19, it's customer service, it's leadership. Some would be about team building. But yes, the essential skills would be leadership and customer service.
So let me tell you the assumption so far for the first 2 pieces. We want to do training in our company with Ariva as a partner in some other form on leadership or team building. And here's my ad: so that we succeed in the marketplace. Because if the leadership we train or the team building we create doesn't cause our customers to have a better experience with us, why are we doing it? And for me, that's the fundamental assumption that's changing about HR. Now, in this coronavirus, we've got to respond, and it's changing our response. With that in mind, I'm going to now talk about paradox, stages of a crisis, and HR deliverables. Let me start with paradox. I love the idea of tension. So this is a highway, obviously, could be in Manila, only if it was in Manila, it would be crowded. There would be a lot of cars and motorcycles. There's two guardrails. Here's the challenge. In navigating in a crisis and outside of a crisis, HR has to navigate the guardrails. The one guardrail is one piece and the other guardrail is another. And we have to navigate between those. It's like the balls that balance or sailing. I've never been. Are you a sailor?
I'm not, sir. I'm not.
Neither am I. But what it says is you port, you tack, you go left, you go right. For example, if I was taking an airplane flight from Manila to Singapore, here's the straight line from Manila to Singapore. The plane is almost never, I'll go this way. The plane is almost never on that line. It goes one side and then the other side. That's navigating paradox. And navigating that paradox becomes what HR should do. So in this crisis, these are four of the critical paradoxes we've seen. And I introduced it briefly. On the one hand, we have to care for the individual. We've got to be very thoughtful. We've got to be very caring. We've got to care. Are we taking care of the individual in a thoughtful way? That's critical. I've seen some post in HR and say, our job is to only care for the people, care for the people. That's wrong. We also have to attend to the organization. How do you navigate those two tensions? How do you navigate those two guardrails? Because you've got to do both. We've got to be bold and short term. We respond. We've got to act. And we have to have long-term values. Because if our actions today don't reflect our long-term values, we lose credibility. If all we do is think about our values but don't act, we don't accomplish anything. For example, I was with a business team recently, and I said, what do we need to do in the next 24 and 48 hours to be successful in this coronavirus crisis? They had some bold actions. Then ask a question. To what extent are those actions consistent with your long-term values? You have values around accountability, around results. Are you consistent with those values? And so our job in HR is to navigate that fundamental tension. We want to converge. Where are we going to focus? What are we going to do? And we've got to diverge. What's a new way to do it? We've got to be resilient. We've got to look back and say, what did I learn? What failed? How can I get better? And we've got to be aspirational. What does the future hold? I think our challenge in navigating success in this virus is to navigate across those tensions. That's part of the HR agenda going forward. And what that means is when I'm in a room with the business leaders and the business leaders are focused on one side or the other, my job is to make sure we bring in balance. For example, the business leaders may be focused on attending to the organization, be competitive, cut costs. I've got to balance the individual. Or the business leaders are only thinking about the individual. I've got to balance the competitiveness. How do I make sure that we have a balanced dialogue? With that in mind, I think we're going to do the next polling question. Let's see if we can put it up. And we're going to take about 30 seconds. I've laid out these four paradoxes. Which one is the most relevant for your organization as you face your work today? By the way, what we should do, how well do you sing? You're an engineer. Do you sing well? Could you sing a song while we're doing this? Da, 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 da.
Okay, what kind of song do you want me to sing, sir?
I don't know. What would you like to sing? Do you want to sing?
I can sing a Broadway song if you want.
Oh, that would be so good. Go ahead.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by, when hopes were high and life worth living.
Oh,
is that enough?
Who is so impressed? I would like you to sing Irish Happy Birthday. I don't know if it's her birthday, but she loves to celebrate birthdays. So could you just do a quick happy birthday to Irish?
Oh, we can sing happy birthday to the celebrants today.
Let's sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. That's about
okay,
it.
we've done enough. We did that to fill time while you filled out the survey.
And
Look at the results.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Which paradox do you as an HR person in the Philippines need to navigate? And the biggest one is the employee care and the organizational competitiveness. By the way, that's so helpful because it says to me, what's the predisposition of my business leaders? Are they focused on care for the people or competing? I've got to make sure that we navigate both of those. We don't manage the paradox. We don't solve it, but we've got to navigate across those two.
Okay.
Really interesting. That's, I think, one of the critical ones. Thank you for letting us share that. And it's fun to see your data about that. So we've just taken you through now one of the pieces of what HR should pay attention to. Let me get my screen going. Oh, these are some tools for making that happen. And let me share those at the organization level. In HR, for the organization, clarify the polls, care, competitiveness. What's the best outcome to win in the marketplace with committed people? How do I engage people and get a point of view? How do I find common ground? And how do I then begin to move forward? At the individual level, and I know I'm sharing a lot, and I hope I'll show again at the end, you'll send on to our website and get a copy of the slides that you can have access to. We began to say, what then are the personal skills HR should have as we navigate paradox? And we've listed 5. Good HR managers of paradox, they can manage cognitive complexity. They can see both sides of an issue. They're learning, they're growing. They're socially endearing. We can disagree without being disagreeable. We listen, we understand, and we help others feel better about themselves. I just posted a piece yesterday on LinkedIn. For me, that's one of the great tests of leadership, is do people leave the interaction feeling better about themselves? 3, they're socially connected. Good leaders of paradox as HR people spend time with people not like them. Visit the shop floor, visit customers. Number 4, we're personally aware. I tend to be a strong introvert. And so my doing a video is really difficult for me. But I've got to get out of my comfort zone to navigate my own paradoxes. I know what I'm comfortable with, and I've got to grow. And finally, I've got to be grounded in a set of values. Now, those are 5 leadership skills that we in HR can build into our leadership training. Okay, let me go back. I started with the first 2 premises after this shock or value added, that our assumption is value added outside in. The virus shapes a new HR response. And I've now given you the first of 3. A, navigating paradox. I in HR should manage the inherent tensions that go on. And there's so many others: hard data, soft data, long-term, short-term, top-down, bottom-up. Don't think of my world as either or. Think of it as and also. So what's the next piece? You know, in the middle of a crisis, we often get locked into what we're experiencing today. And today's experience locks me in. So I began to think, what are stages of a crisis? What do we go through as we face a crisis? What are some stages that we go through? And as I thought about that, it became kind of interesting to say, you know, there's some stages that a crisis is likely to go through. And the metaphor I came up with, our son-in-law, where is he? Ah, here he is, just so you keep seeing the picture. This gentleman right here, he's a doctor. Wow. And if he's driving down the highway and there's an accident, and I know in Manila, there's never accidents. People never get in accidents. What happens? There's an accident. He's a first responder. He stops. He reacts quickly. He stops the bleeding. He renders. He does triage. You know, that's what happened in the United States about 6 weeks ago. I don't know when in the Philippines the quarantine happened, but
March
boom,
15th. Yeah.
March 15th?
Yes.
You know, it was the same for me. It's so interesting. Can you remember when you heard that there was going to be a quarantine, that there was going to be a lockdown, sheltering?
Yeah.
I was teaching a college class at the university near here. I went at 6 o'clock to teach the class. I left at 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, I got in my car to drive home. And my wife called and she said, Dave, have you heard? And I said, what's that? I like basketball. The NBA is shut down. And I said, give me a break. This is the NBA. We love basketball. The NBA closed tonight. People are now told to go home and not leave their homes. And it just, boom, that's the accident. You react. Companies react. You now work at home. You got to get stuff done. And we get into that response mode. The next phase is, in our accident, the ambulance comes. And we've got to go through, now that we're at home, trying to figure out where do we put our technology and how do we work at home and how do we manage our children and how do we stay connected with customers. In the ambulance, the caregivers say, you're okay. Let's diagnose what's going on. Let's begin to get some expertise. I think most of us are now in phase 3, what I call hospital or expert care. We're getting solutions. We've now been sheltered at home with you since March 15th. That's about 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We're getting some solutions. We're learning some new routines. We're getting the processes. By the way, we're antsy to go home. We've not yet gone home. When we do go home and the new normal comes, some people are going to have a new identity. All of us will have new insights. We want that new identity and those new insights to last. My sense is those phases tell me what's happening and what could be happening in this coronavirus. I see people right now in the United States and in Europe and perhaps in the Philippines saying, we are now in a new normal. And I look at it and I go, are you nuts? It's not new normal that Hal and I are having a conversation with me in my office and him in his kitchen. That's just not normal for anybody.
It's not.
We're not in the accident. This isn't a crisis. It's not your first webinar, and it's not my first webinar. We're not even in transition. We're in the hospital learning how to do things differently. And then we're going to begin to embed a new normal. So where am I today? That's the logic of the crisis. Okay. I've started with 2 basic premises. I've talked about paradox. I've talked about stages in a crisis. Let me take another deep breath and see if anybody has any questions that came through in the
We have one, sir.
Super. I'm not reading it, so...
it's okay. Can I read it for you, Dr. Dave?
That would be great. That'd be great.
Okay, from June Prilla. For us HR leaders, having experienced how to navigate and transition their organization and people through this crisis, what new skill set do you see we should upskill on moving forward?
You know, June, that is such a great question. And that's my final point. What are the HR actions and competencies we need? And I've got 2 sets of those that I'll share with you. Let me tell you the first, though, the skill. I think the skill is what I do with my hands and feet. You know, that's my feet, that's my hands, that's the behavior. I think the biggest skill is the mental model, and that's that first one, the value-added assumption. Am I thinking about it? Let me give an example, and I'm getting some sun from our where I am in the evening. I'll turn my slide just this way a little bit to avoid some of that. You're having a great morning. I'm having a great evening. When this crisis started, and I'll go back to this logic. I'll stay on this slide. We went home. So we start working at home. We work remotely. We're sheltering. And everybody is worried about the administrative thing. Dress up, put on a tie. I won't ask what Hal is wearing below the shirt and the suit. I'm sure it's just elegant, but I don't want to know.
It's a blue pajama.
Anyway, and you know, we talked a lot about all the administrative stuff, getting set up. I think we missed the point. The point for me is it doesn't matter where you work. It could be in your home office. It could be on an airplane. It could be in a hotel. It could be in a regular office. Here's the key. To what extent does the work that you do, wherever you do it, create value for your customer? I don't care where you work, but if your work isn't creating value for your customer, you're not being a good employee today. And that's the mindset. It's not about what we do for work or where we work. It's about how our work is helping the customer be successful. For example, in one of the companies I've worked with, Sometimes people have time at home. And so the HR people are calling some of the customer HR people. So if I'm a firm and I have a big operation as a bank or a retail firm or a technology firm in the Philippines, I'm in HR getting a hold of my peers in the HR company and saying, how are you doing? What are you doing that's interesting? What are you doing that's new? Are you managing okay? And I then, in working at home in HR, begin to build an emotional bridge to some of our key customers. What a great question, June. And I'll get into some of the skills, but I think the big challenge is the bias, the unconscious bias, that it's not what we do for work or how we do it, it's why we do it to create value in the marketplace.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. Are you willing to entertain some more questions?
Let's take two more, and then I'll go to the last piece because we have 30 minutes for questions. So
okay, sir. This from Irish, Madam Irish Malondo Samson. What HR people can do to lessen the stress of the employees in times like this? Oh, this is from John Paul Mangulabnan.
John, thank you. And John, I can't say your last name, and neither can Hal. So, you know, I think, John, how do you remove stress? I think there's 3 or 4 things. One is transparency and candor with information. Give people information. Don't hide information. For example, sometimes there's tough information. Give people information. Tell people what's going on. Be transparent. 2, listen to people. Let me say, everybody says listen. I'm going to change it. Hear people. Listen means, yes, I've listened. I nod my head. You used words, and I understood your words. Hearing means I felt some of the emotion behind what you said. And so as an HR person, get you and your business leaders to listen and remove that stress. Number 3, face the reality of what's the future. Don't hide from it. Yes, there may be jobs lost. We don't know yet what that looks like, but we can deal with that. And creating a setting where we're transparent with information, we're hearing our employees, we're laying out a future as candid as we can be. And then finally, to remove some of the stress, involve the employees in decisions. One of my favorite 4-word questions. What do you think? An employee comes and says, what are we going to do at retaining customers? And I say, I've thought a lot about that. Let me share my ideas. But before I do so, what do you think?
Okay.
And the employee has a voice. And again, it doesn't take away stress, but it removes some of that because you have resources to take it away. You know what? I'm going to move to the next section, and then we'll do questions at the end, if that's okay.
Sir.
I'm
okay,
trying
Dr.
to manage
Dave.
my time and effectively. So we've talked about 2 things, paradox and stages. Now let's go to the more interesting question, and I think I'm going to go here. I'm going to jump ahead. Imagine there's a business meeting. Imagine there's a business meeting. In that business meeting, I don't have it here, the business leader is sitting often at the head of the table where she or he would sit. Finance comes to that meeting and says, what are the financial implications of our goals? Do we have cash? Do we have money? What are the financial implications? The marketing person or salesperson says, what are the customer implications? Operations says, what are the systems and manufacturing implications? When I'm in HR and I come to that business meeting, what do I talk about? It's actually a very interesting question. Finance talks about money, cash flow, net present value, market value. Marketing talks about customers, who they are, our net promoter score, our service, future customers, what they want. Operations talks about systems and supply chain and manufacturing. When HR walks in the room, what do we talk about? I believe there's 3 things. Talent. Do we have the right people? Do we have the right workforce? Do we have the right competence? Culture. Do we have the right workplace? Do we have the right process? And leadership. I believe there's 3 things. We've got to have good talent. We've got to have a great culture, and we've got to have leadership that pulls them together. For me, that is such a powerful, again, here's my dissertation. I had to find it. It's on taxonomy. It's really, really boring. It's so boring. It's just got lots of tables, but it's simple. There's 3 simple things I in HR ask around any business dialogue. Do we have the right talent, people? Do we have the right culture? organization, and do we have the right leadership? Now, if I were with people, I would give them a test. You've got two things, and it would be fun if we could show everybody's face. I won't do it. My 5 fingers represent individuals. I got 5 people. Whoop, that's my people. And my fist represents the organization. Which matters more at creating value in the marketplace? Is it the people or is it the organization? You know, that's a very interesting question. It's a really interesting question. I'm going to jump ahead. I get to move slides a little bit. I'm going to jump way ahead, and then I'm going to go way backwards. So I'm going to go way ahead, and I'm sorry to do this to you. I'm going to go way ahead to slide 38, which is the next poll. So if you can put that up. Oh, you are so good. You are so good. Thank you. So we're going to spend another minute, and I'm tempted, Hal, to have you sing, but I'm going to do something a little different. I haven't done it. To fill the 1 minute, we're going to go 60 seconds. I'm going to do show and tell. That's my mother. That's my sister. That's me. And that's a book on my family. This is a book on my mother when she was young. Oh, she was very hot. Ooh.
She's so beautiful.
She is wonderful. And in this book, I'm just sharing instead of you singing. You will sing on the next one.
I don't have to sing anymore. I mean, I'm embarrassed already.
I love it when, no, you were, well, I'm embarrassing myself. Here's my mother as a prom queen. I don't usually share all this, but you're in my home office. So we'll share. Oh,
by the way, I love your library. I love your office.
Oh, that's fine. That's me as a little boy with curly hair. That's my big sister. So I'm sharing stuff. We've done a minute. Okay, I've shared enough. Next time you have to sing instead of me sharing. So,
no, you know what? Your sharing was 100 times more wonderful than me singing.
You know what? This was fascinating. Look at what we saw. Which matters most? Talent, organization, or leadership? 54% organization. That's really interesting. Let me go back now to the slide where I was. And then let's stop the results. One of the cool things here is we're learning technology. I'm learning with you. We did research. Your answer was 54% leader, 52%, then I think 25-25. Here's what we found. 8-2 organization. We did statistics, and we said, here's the characteristics of the individuals, the war for talent. Here's the organization, the culture, the capability. We did a regression on statistics on the outcomes of business success or customer value, and it was 4-1, 8-2 organization. By the way, that's why we call the book Victory Through Organization. You can fight a war with people, but you win a war with organization. I love to eat. Obviously, I'm large. And if I'm making a cookie, the individuals are the ingredients, the flour, the sugar, the shortening. Putting that together creates the outcome of the organization. And then leadership integrates those two. That research is fascinating. It's consistent with what we know in soccer. And I don't know how good a soccer team the Philippines has. I don't know if you're one of the best ever or not. But in the World Cup,
we will be.
Okay, fantasies are very good to have. That's not a fantasy. But in the World Cup, 20% of the time, the winner of the Golden Boot, so he scores the most goals, is on the team that wins the World Cup. The same ratio. Okay. That's true in every team sport. It's true in basketball that I enjoy. It's true in hockey. It's true in Australian football. 20% of the time, the leading scorer is on the team that wins the championship. An individual can be a champion, but the team wins the championship. It's also true in movies. 20% of the time, the best actor or actress is in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. This year, the Movie of the Year, I've lost the name of it. It's the Korean movie at the bottom. Parasite. Yeah. It won Movie of the Year. It didn't win Best Actor. It didn't win Best Actress. But 80% of the time, the director is in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. That's where leadership counts. So what we say, and that's the research and basic idea, when HR walks into any business meeting, there's 3 things that we want to provide. talent, leadership, and culture or organization. Now I'm going to do something very dangerous. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 slides on each of those 3. And again, I'm sorry, I've only got 12 minutes left in our hour, and then we'll have time for questions. I hope this is engaging enough to keep you engaged.
Definitely,
Talent.
sir.
Do we have the right competence? A, have we brought the right people in? B, do we move the people through learning? And again, the organization you should go to get great learning solutions is Ariva. Okay, 3. I'm done.
True.
C, have we retained and removed? D, are our employees committed and engaged? In other words, are they giving their best effort? And E, are they finding meaning from work? In organizations in this new world, we've got to create a new kind of organization. And I love this story. I've told it a lot. It happened about 1.5 years ago. A woman was on a beach with her 2 sons, 8 and 10, and her mother. The 2 boys jumped in the water. They got caught in a riptide. I've never been in a riptide. Hal, have you ever been in a riptide?
I have so far.
I have not. But they're scary. What I understand is the 2 boys are in it. The mother, the grandmother jump in, and then 4 or 5 people from the beach jump in. And the riptide is pulling them out into the ocean. The best swimmer in the history of the world is probably Michael Phelps, 25 Olympic medals. He could not save those people. What happened is within 2 or 3 minutes, about 80 people joined arms and joined hands, and notice they formed a human chain.
Wow.
And they rescued the people.
Wow.
Here's what happened conceptually. They saw a market challenge. People are in danger. They responded by creating an organization where the individual ingredients created a great team, and they saved the people. How do you create organizations that do that? The theory of that, and this is so boring, you ought to just skip it. It's not because you have a role in a hierarchy. It's not your systems. It's not even your capability. It's the way you create an organization that responds to market opportunities. Arthur Young, the book on the bottom right, called Reinventing the Organization. Arthur and I studied that, and we published a book last fall, mostly with Chinese companies. How do large companies like Haier, Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, JD.com, and in the US, Google, Amazon, Apple, how do these companies create organizations that do what that chain of people did to save those swimmers? We identified 6 things. I'm not going to bore you with that. And then the third thing, so we have talent. And again, I'll have you send for the slides. We have talent.
Leadership.
This is organization. And then you got to have great leadership. You've got to have great leadership. And that leadership is a brand. As an example, often we talk about the competencies of a leader. Well, the competencies of a leader should reflect the brand identity in the marketplace. A brand is so critical. I'll give you another example. This is my watch. There it is. It's cheap. It's a Timex. A Timex is a very cheap watch. But why do I believe in a Timex? Because my father, who's passed away, and sometimes I still feel the loss of my father.
I'm sorry.
I should have his picture here. I have his picture in the other side of the room. Well, I have something about my father. Hang on, let me see.
Okay, sir.
No, I'm not gonna bore you with my father. My father was not a brilliant educator, but I published books. I started doing work, and my father bought me a Timex watch.
Oh.
And he said, Dave, the Timex watch is a symbol that I love you, not because you've been successful, not because of your books or your career or all that stuff. I love you because you're my son.
Wow. It
has nothing to do with your career. By the way, our son, when he finished his PhD, this is our family again. This is the son. Where's Mike? Oh my goodness, he's not there. Well, this is most of our family. We just wiped out our son. I got to find my son just so I show that he is real. I have these pictures in my office that I don't get to show. That's our son. When he got, and his beautiful wife, when he got his PhD, my gift to him was a Timex watch.
Wow.
And I said, dear Mike, I'm proud of you. You've got a PhD, you're doing your work, but that's not why I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because you're a good father. You care about your children. Our job in HR is to build leadership. And we've given you 6 steps in a brand to do it. Whoa, this time has gone quickly. There's 3 dimensions to managing in this crisis: navigating paradox, knowing the stages of a crisis, and deliverables. We've done this test. Organization got 50%. That's what we should focus on to be successful. Now I'm going to give you a sheet that I apologize for. You'll get it when you get the notes. Okay. Look at those 4 stages of a crisis. First aid, ambulance number 2, hospital number 3. Then look at the columns of talent, leadership, and organization. What you've now got is a 12 grids. Where are we today in serving my organization as HR? Cell number 10. As we return to the new normal, have we acquired the right competencies for our people? Do we manage, believe, become, and belong, or sentiment? Under leadership, cell 11. Have we created the right leadership brand for our future? Are we developing our leaders for that future? And number 12, are we creating and embedding the right culture? Have we adapted new insights to how we do the work? That's where I hope we can go. Wow. Now, the question that I think June asked, and thanks for your patience, what does this mean for HR? Let me answer this, and then we may take a break. I've got 2 things I'm going to give. I've been asked lately, and I'm going to do a talk on this in next week a couple of times. What are the insights that will help us discover opportunities? I know you won't get all these, but I'm just going to, I'm going to ask you to pick a number and you can glance through. So Hal, I identified 10 insights that I think will emerge that will shape people, leaders, and organizations. I'm going to ask you, Hal, to pick a number, 1 to 10. What number would you pick?
I love number 7.
Let's do number 7. How do I better tolerate uncertainty? I think we now live in a world where we don't know what's going to go on. I love certainty. Fill in the blank. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. There's certainty. There's a pattern. That's statistician. You know what? Here's the new world. 1, 3, 5, 7, 22. Who knew the coronavirus would come? How do I live in there without getting certainty? There's a great book. My wife's a psychologist. I didn't know you'd pick that. There's this great book called Ambiguous Loss. I call it Ambiguous Transition. And this author said, we don't always know the transitions, but we have to manage the ambiguity that comes with it. What do? You start with what you can do. Don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can. You do small, simple steps. You do experiments. You try something. You try it. I've tried different ways to do webinars. I've tried lectures. I've tried presentations. I'm now trying to show pictures of my family and all kinds of stupid stuff. Experiment. I can't solve the uncertainty, but I can do small steps. And then take a deep breath. Back to the question that was asked so brilliantly. Reduce the stress. Share information with yourself. Now, help individuals manage their uncertainty. Help leaders manage uncertainty. And then help your organization. Let's do one other number. You can look through those. Just pick one other number.
10.
I have the privilege of coaching leaders. I'm going to tell a story. I don't often tell this, but it's a Philippine story.
Okay.
I've been privileged to coach, and I hope she won't be upset with me. She's not on this, but she may hear about it. I've been coaching a woman named Dr. Astrid Tumines. Astrid grew up and was born in the Philippines in a hut. And she has a picture. It was stilts in a hut. Her family was very poor. She had sisters and a family that was extreme poverty. When she was 5 or 6, they put her to school. She went to a school sponsored by the nuns. And this is Astrid Tumines. And if I could find anyway, I'll bring the story quickly. She went to school. She was 5 or 6. She sat in the back corner because that was the student who knew the least. I'm going to go really quickly now. By the end of that year, she was in the front row in the middle. She was the valedictorian in the high school in the Philippines. She came to a United States University valedictorian, ended up with a PhD and master's degree from Harvard and MIT, speaks 6 languages, worked for the State Department in Russia, ran Microsoft technology throughout Southeast Asia. She's now the head of a university with 40,000 students. This is somebody from the Philippines who is just literally rags to riches. I've had the real privilege of sitting with her as a coach. Every time I coach her, this is what I say. Dr. Tuminez, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. She works 22 hours a day. I mean, I've met very few people who have her capacity. 6 languages, valedictorian, graduate degree at Harvard and MIT, Russian embassy in Singapore, running Microsoft Asia Pacific. Are you taking care of yourself? Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And I hope as an HR professional, by the way, we're not going to have the privilege of working with Dr. Tuminez all that often. There aren't many of those. Maybe I think I'm looking at you, Hal, and you're saying, Irish is exactly like that. She's my boss, and she is just like that. So agree with me. No, I'm joking, obviously. Astrid, are you taking care of yourself? And whatever it is you do, it could be nutrition, exercise, sleep, getting away, calling time out. Do things that allow you to take care of yourself. Have a sense of humor. Let go. And then you can take care of others. And what does that mean for an individual? What does that mean for a leader? What does that mean for an organization? Learn to navigate some of those personal issues that allow us to be successful. Those are my 10 tips. And back, I can't remember who asked it. It may have been Rochelle. What does HR need to do? We need to recognize those insights. Now, the final piece I'm going to share. We have done enormous research, and I haven't shared a lot of research here, about what set of competencies should HR people have, and it was her question. What should we be? What should we know? What should we do to be successful? We identified 9 sets of competencies. In the middle were the most critical. Be a credible activist. Be someone in HR that your business leaders and employees trust. You're credible and have a point of view. Be a strategic positioner. Be somebody who sees and anticipates strategy and responds. And in the middle is what I talked about so much, navigate paradox. Yes. We found that those skills, and I'm going to jump ahead, are critical. We're doing that research again. We hope you'll join us. Go online and find it. These are the emerging skills to your question that we're going to test. We actually started this in February, then we stopped because of the pandemic. HR people need to manage information better. We need to manage and create asymmetry for our company. We need to separate noise from signal. There's a lot of noise. What are the priorities? We need to offer guidance. We are now creating beyond describing what to do, we're creating a guidance system of where we should focus. RBL.ai has it. We want to create solutions that anticipate change, and we want to be social citizens. Whoa, take a breath. I've covered 6 things. And here's my to-do list, and I'm going to do the final poll in just a minute. Rethink our assumptions, recognize the jolt of the coronavirus, I'm on the right-hand side, navigate paradox, improve at each of those 4 stages, and finally deliver talent, organization, and have the competency. So here's my last poll. Let's see if we can put that one up. What should we do, Hal, to fill our time? I'll tell you what, why don't you give Irish a public performance review that we just have a couple of hundred people listening in on? That was a joke. She's now
I'd be more than glad to say that. You know what? But if I can give a feedback on how you've done in the past hour.
Well, let's wait and see how people score. What did I learn? What will help me move forward? Let me share one other thing, and we want to go about a minute, so we have 30 seconds. When I finished my dissertation, which was this document in 1982, this big fat book, I got a check, and I haven't looked at this for a long time. It's a check for $11.35, or $11.65.
And you did not encash it.
I did not cash it. I put it in a frame. I spent 2 years writing this dissertation, and I got $11 for it. So let's look at what we've done. We've got a minute. Let's end the polling. You know, it's really interesting. What are we seeing? Number 4, I really like that, 34%. Get focused on each stage of the crisis. and deliver talent, leadership, and organization. I really like that. You know what's interesting about this result? Everybody's in a different place. Everybody's in a different place. And that's really helpful. Let me stop that. I'm going to go to the last page, and then we may take our break and then come back and get questions. I think we're just at the hour. I hope this has gone quickly for people. And I'm going to put this last page up so that people can write the slide down for, oh, I got to always end here.
Okay.
The best is yet ahead. I hope we see that in HR. I hope I've given you a roadway or a guidance as you go on that trail. So you can write this down, and Ira said, and I think you reinforced how that we're gonna take a minute so people can write this down and get the slides if they want, and then we'll come back and do questions. So I'll turn it back to you, and tell me when we need to come back.
Before you go, Dr. Dave Ulrich, I'd like to encourage everyone to show your appreciation and give a big round of applause for Dr. Dave Ulrich. You did a magnificent job, sir. What you have just shared with us over the past hour is equivalent to a 3-day learning that we usually have. And you know what? The way I see it, after accessing the free material, I think it will take me a week to fully digest, understand, and incorporate it to my leadership and my life. So thank you so much, Dr. Dave.